morning. It is Tuesday, May 12, 2015. This is your morning edition on I-24 News. Coming up later today, officials from the European Union and Iran meet up in Vienna today to resume nuclear talks ahead of the June 30th deadline for final agreement. Israel and Germany mark 50 years of diplomatic relations and pen a multi-million-dollar weapons deal. And later on the show, a new website aims to help women survive breast cancer with their style and their dignity intact. Good morning, I'm Yael Avi, and we begin in Vienna, where representatives of the European Union and Iran are meeting today to resume negotiations aiming to reach a definitive accord on Iran's nuclear program. The political leaders of the other world powers involved in the negotiations are set to join the talks on Friday. In April, the sides reached an 11th-hour breakthrough in Lausanne, signing a framework agreement stipulating Tehran would scale down its nuclear program for 10 to 15 years and allow closer UN inspections in exchange for the lifting of sanctions. A deal that, according to U.S. officials, seems closer than ever, much to the dismay of Gulf states, of course, and naturally Israel. Later this week, U.S. President Barack Obama is scheduled to hold a summit with some leaders from Gulf states to discuss the progress, but cancellations by high-level officials may be telling of a wavering trust in U.S. foreign policy. We are joined in studio by former Director General in the Ministry of Strategic Affairs, Yosef Kuperwasser. Mr. Kuperwasser, good morning to you. Good morning. And from Jerusalem, we are honored to be joined by the Ziegler Distinguished Fellow and Director of the Washington Institute for Near East Policy Project on the Middle East, Mr. David Makovsky. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Makovsky. Before we speak, though, I want to start. Mr. Makovsky, I want to start off the bat straight with you. As a distinguished scholar, and possibly best equipped to decipher U.S. interests in the Middle East, is it true that the United States has picked a new Arab leader in the region and is bent on this nuclear agreement come hell or high water, as many Israeli analysts claim?
Look, I think the Ayatollah could still blow the deal. As far as I know, there are a few issues that are still remaining open in terms of access of sites, in terms of the sequencing of sanctions relief. There are others. The Vice President gave a speech the other day at my institute, and he's spoken elsewhere, saying there's no deal if those things are indeed demanded by the Ayatollah. So I don't think it's the Middle East. Nothing is done until it's done. I think likelihood is they've come this far. They'll find a way. But I think we got to just be a little careful in saying that it's all wrapped up.
Well, rightfully so, and accepted. That said, on the road to this deal, I think Israeli analysts and many in the Middle East who are opposed to the deal are feeling that the United States has seemingly picked this new player, that it really wants this deal to come through. What is it so important to U.S. interests in the Middle East when it comes to Iran?
Look, I think what you have, here, and I'm not trying to take sides on the deal itself. Clearly, I think you have to be a little careful and say that this is a new, a realignment of forces in the region. The United States, views Iran still as a country that supports terrorism in a lot of hot spots, whether it's Syria, whether it's in Yemen, whether it's in other places. The United States is against the Iranians, and I obviously understand the concerns in Israel. Israel lives in the region, feels it doesn't have the luxury of a lot of experimentation, and sees the deal as being too generous to Iran. And I don't think we should kind of sweep that under the carpet. This is going to be, this is not an easy deal. I perfectly understand why Israel is against it and why the Sunni Arabs are against it. For the United States, I think it feels 35 years of opposition, with the Ayatollah and the Iranian regime. It believes that, there's more cushion room on breakout, meaning that Iran cannot make a dash for 12, 13 years. That'll be 3 or 4 times the length of that cushion is today, in terms of if it wants to make a dash for going from a reactor-grade fuel to weapons-grade fuel.
Right.
I think there's a lot to criticize about this deal. I'm not here to be its advocate or to, to pull the plug. But I just think that the U.S. is driven by a sense that this could be somewhat of a game changer in terms of easing U.S.-Iranian tensions. But let's not underestimate the differences the United States has with Iran, whether it's Hezbollah, whether it's Hamas, whether it's Yemen, whether it's Syria. And there's big questions here about sanction relief, about how do you ensure that that sanction relief doesn't help some of the worst forces in the Middle East. So I think Israel has every right to be concerned.
Very valid points, and Mr. Makowski, do stay with us. We're going to just opening this up for a discussion with Mr. Kuperwasser. In studio, we're also joined from Washington, D.C. by Rebecca Shimoni-Stoll. Rebecca, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Rebecca, you're staying with us. Mr. Kuperwasser, I want to start with you, though, as everybody's listening to this. Be it, not for or against when it comes to, the agenda of the press, but let's say there is a deal June 30th between the United States and Iran. And we all know the dangers that the Israeli Prime Minister has been addressing when it comes to a deal as such. What does it mean, though, for Israel standing in the Middle East?
Well, Israel, is fighting against this deal.
No, I know, but other than how dangerous Israel thinks it is, because Iran is dangerous, but if there is a deal, where does that put Israel and its power in the Middle East?
I think, as I said, Israel is fighting against the deal. In my mind, the fight against the deal is not going to come to an end if there is a deal. The fight will continue, because this deal is the deal of President Obama. And it's clear that in the Western society, and especially in the United States, there's a big debate about this deal, because it indicates a change in attitude of the United States in the Middle East. And because of that, I believe that if there is a deal, there's going to be a new architecture of forces in the Middle East, because these people who are going to attend the meeting in Camp David later this week are not going to live with this deal. And we're going to see a greater cooperation between Israel and the other opponents of this deal, including those who oppose it in the United States and those who oppose it in the Middle East. Because this deal is the most important thing that's going to shape the Middle East in the future. And with all due respect, there's no other way to interpret this deal but some sort of an alliance between the United States and the realistic radicals in the Middle East, which are on the one hand Turkey and the Qatar and the Muslim Brotherhood, and the Rouhani types in Iran,
right,
who are realistic but radical. And they give some sort of room to maneuver for the more radical elements, the non-realistic radicals, the extremist radicals, like Soleimani and other people in the Iranian regime. And this is the big problem with this deal. Nobody believes that those realistic radicals are moderates, except the United States administration.
Well, so it seems right now, Rebecca Shimoni-Stoll, Times of Israel, Washington, D.C. correspondent. And, we discussed this yesterday, but I'm assuming that, what Mr. Kuperwasser has just said, stands by the fact that so many, Gulf state leaders have canceled, as you mentioned yesterday, B players are coming to this convention in, to this Camp David meeting. Is President Obama, is the White House aware that, or I'm wondering out loud with you, that this deal also needs to be sold to the Gulf states, to the other opposing forces in the Middle East? And is there some type of, that we're hearing chatter in the White House of how to deal with that, how to sell it, not just, forget Israel for a second, but the other Arab players in the region?
Well, the short answer is, of course they are. Otherwise, they wouldn't be having this get-together this week at the White House.
Which not many people are attending, sadly.
Right, yeah. Right. But there is certainly the effort and the acknowledgement that there are more countries unhappy with the deal than Israel alone, and that, in fact, they may have some slightly different concerns, some slightly different nuanced perspectives on what should be done and what can be done to mitigate the impact of the deal. And that's kind of what the U.S. is struggling with, not necessarily the question of should there be interaction with the Gulf states. The answer is a resounding yes over the Iran deal. But the question of, well, what is meaningful interaction with the Gulf states? And this seems to be the point at which there's a little bit of a break, kind of, in the perspective of America versus the, I should mention, not altogether unified perspectives of the Gulf states when they come to the question of, okay, we understand there needs to be a sort of dialogue because the Gulf states are unhappy, but what should that dialogue entail and what should the Gulf states walk out of that dialogue with in their pockets?
And we're wondering, what that exactly is. Mr. Makowski still with us from Jerusalem. When it comes, and I'm trailing back to U.S. interests in the Middle East, because, it's something that you research. What are those interests right now? Because it isn't, if this deal is signed, it's a shifting of power in the Middle East. It's almost a reshifting of, of responsibility to players. So what are the interests of the U.S. that are represented in the push for this deal, in your educated mind?
Look, I would say, and I have a high respect for Yossi, but I would like to respectfully disagree with him. He sees this as a realignment. I mean, the United States did arms control deals with the Soviet Union in the 80s and was opposed to the Soviets on an array of issues, kept pressing on the dissident question, refusnik issue, and had an array of differences. I agree, this is a huge issue. I'm not underestimating it. But the United States is not suddenly going to support Hezbollah, the Brotherhood, and all these militant groups. It's unthinkable. With the Gulf states, and to follow up there, look, the U.S. is going to want to come with some sort of an agreement that if it's an attack by Iran, the U.S. will come to its defense. There's going to be an issue of arms sales to these states. Israel has gotten closer to these Sunni countries itself, and there's issues of we call QME, qualitative military edge, and Israel will be concerned that the quality of the system sold, even as it becomes closer to these Sunni Gulf states, is not that it's going to have an impact with Israel, only because even if these regimes are friendly, who knows, about their stability down the road. So in defining U.S. interests broadly, look, it's clearly, it has, there's a traditional support for Israel. It's clear that Israel, the United States, wants to maintain affordable price of oil flows out of the region through the Straits of Hormuz, even with the fracking and all the U.S. drive for greater energy independence. As the world superpower, it has to keep the oil lanes open, because if China gets choked and it goes into recession, that also affects the United States. So, I mean, these are just examples. But the United States is not going to suddenly say, oh, Iran, take over Saudi Arabia, take over the United Arab Emirates. I mean, it's just unthinkable. Yeah. And I think that, we should just put this in proportion. Again, not as someone who supports the deal, but this is not about a realignment. The United States is going to maintain those friendships, and I think it'll oppose Iran on Hezbollah, it will oppose any support on Hamas, will oppose them in Yemen, will oppose them in Syria, and will oppose them in other hot spots in the region.
But Mr. Makowski, it's very valid points, but if a deal is signed, and even if the agenda is not realignment, it will realign the Middle East power. Right. It will, at the end of the day, realign the power.
It will impact the balance of power. There's no doubt, and I completely agree with Yossi, that this thing isn't over once it's solved. I mean, in Congress, even if they can't override the president's veto, you might have 60 senators against it. And right. If there's a new president coming in, people are going to wonder if this deal is going to remain durable in a new administration. So I'm not here to soft soap this. Clearly, there's going to be questions down the road, and if Iran is not in compliance, clearly, I think the U.S. is going to pull the plug. But you're right to say, this is not exactly irrelevant in terms of the balance of power in the region, and that's why it's important that the U.S. not just reassure allies, but reinforces them. It has 35,000 troops in the Gulf now. It needs to do whatever it can to bolster its military presence, to provide the needed weapon systems to help its Sunni allies, and of course the state of Israel. And I'm glad to see it's giving the F-35, which is a fifth-generation fighter, which according to reports can overcome S-300s or anything like that. Israel's right now the only country getting the F-35.
Right. Israel will be equipped,
I think that's
the case.
Coming year.
But speaking of it, moving on quickly though to and actually Rebecca, this is to you, and then Mr. Kuperwasser. As we discussed, and we're all listening to this, whether it's the agenda or not, the power play will be realigned. The Israel-U.S. relations, I know we all see it being played out in the media in the most shameful way. Are they that bad right now?
Are they that bad?
Yeah, no, seriously.
Well, I suppose that I could say from my personal perspective here in Washington, it's actually been a quieter couple of weeks than the previous couple of weeks. So maybe there's something.
No, but President Obama made it a point to say that until June 30th, he is not going to meet with Prime Minister Netanyahu, which is a clear sign of saying, you know, I mean, in other words, not butt out, but I'm not going to put you in this play mix. You know, I'm going to see you when this thing is done. And how does that play out for be it the Jewish lobby, you know, and that agenda on in Washington?
Well, I don't think it's a huge surprise to anybody, whether it was a spoken, you know, an articulated point or an inarticulated point, that what Obama does not perceive that he needs right now is a round two of what we saw in March, with Netanyahu coming very publicly to Washington and, you know, basically lobbying against the Iran deal. So I think that it's very clear from the White House's perspective that this is kind of a point of the obvious.
Right.
That said, there's also an acknowledgement here that Netanyahu himself has basically two very large portfolios to sit on right now. One of them is Iran, which he's always said is his major priority, and the other one is getting his government together and up and running. And I think over the past 2 weeks in Washington, a lot of focus has been on the nature of the government that has been formed and kind of speculating on what does the nature of the new government mean for Israel's objections and the level of vocalness of those objections to the Iran deal. That said, also, you know, there's a lot of issues dangling over the relationship, not just Iran. And so not only are people looking to June 30th and what increasingly seems to look like a sort of a fait accompli that there will be some kind of a deal perhaps reached, although then Congress kicks in, right? But also beyond June 30th and beyond that deal and say, okay, so what's the step after that? Let's say there is a deal. Let's say a deal is reached.
Exactly.
And then,
yeah, what then between the two countries? And no, very well, then, Mr. Kuperwas, so that's actually the follow-up to you. Let's say there is this deal. I am assuming, okay, that Israel is not going to press a button once the deal is signed and bomb Tehran. Let's be realistic in a way. Where does that put then Israel, you know, vis-a-vis the United States and the follow-up on that relationship? Because it's the one thing that Prime Minister Netanyahu has promised his people, his constituencies, that he's going to fight against. But if this thing is happening,
we're going to definitely fight against this deal because this is a terrible deal. Even in the fact sheet that the White House has issued, even if the Iranians accept everything that the Americans insist on, still it's a disastrous deal.
But as it's moving along, as it's forging along,
wait a minute. So what I'm saying is, because it's such a disastrous deal, we should have to continue fighting against. And the most important thing in the day after would be to see where the presidential candidates in the United States stand on this issue. Because what the deal does is throw the garbage in their backyard. Because, okay, it's not going to happen in the next year and a half, but what about the next president? And because of that, the most important thing is to hear the presidential candidates in the United States, what is their opinion on this issue, especially the Democratic candidate, which has said very clearly in the past, she is very much against such a deal. She is against any kind of enrichment in Iran, but has not said anything until now. And once there is a deal, and there are 30 days for the Congress to review it, I think it's going to be extremely important to listen to what the next presidents of the United States are going to say about this issue. We have to understand.
You just basically sanctioned Hillary Clinton as the next president of the United States.
No, I'm saying next presidents.
Next presidents. Okay, now many women around the world will be cheering you right now.
Anyhow, what is very important to see that this deal that allows Iran actually to become a nuclear power is definitely such that would change the Middle East, as was explained before. And because of that, we should do everything in our capacity in order to prevent it from happening. And that's the most important thing right now.
Time will tell. Sadly, all the time that we have for this. Rebecca, always such a pleasure. Rebecca Stolley from Washington, always a pleasure having you. Mr. Makowski, who is here from the Begin Sadat Center for a special convention. I want to thank you for the time this morning with us, and obviously also Mr. Kuperwas as we move along. Thank you.
Thank you.
As Europe struggles to address a worsening migration crisis, the executive arm of the European Union is expected this week to submit a proposal to distribute migrants across the 28-member bloc. A plan that would encounter fierce resistance from some national governments, Britain, for example, according to reports following last week's landslide Tory election victory. Now, tens of thousands of migrants have risked the dangerous crossing of the Mediterranean this year, often with fatal consequences. Last month, for example, a vessel capsized off Italy, killing as many as 900 people. The proposal for redistributing migrants would be based on a quota system that would take into account factors like the size of a country's population in Europe, the state of its economy, and its level of joblessness. But that is not the only plan the EU or on the EU's agenda. European Union's foreign policy chief Federica Mogherini on Monday also appealed for international backing for a plan to use military force to destroy the boats used by migrant smugglers, possibly even targeting them before they enter international waters. Civil war in Libya has made it easier for smugglers to transport people through the country, leading to a surge in migrants attempting to enter the European continent. So Mogherini's plan would aim to target Europe's migrant problem, quote unquote, so to speak, on the onset. Let's take a look at the following report and break it down, break these decisions or so-called upcoming plans down after that.
The European Union is advancing plans to stage military attacks in a bid to prevent migrants from traversing the Mediterranean Sea from Libya. Federica Mogherini, the EU's chief foreign and security policy coordinator, briefed the UN Security Council in New York on Monday on the plans for a resolution authorizing the use of force.
It is not only a humanitarian emergency, but also a security crisis, since smuggling networks are linked to, and in some cases finance, terrorist activities, which contributes to instability in a region that is already unstable enough.
On Wednesday, the European Union's executive body will unveil radical new proposals on immigration, forcing its 28-member countries to share responsibility for refugees arriving across the Mediterranean. According to the plan, the number of refugees sent to each country would be decided according to a redistribution key based on GDP, population size, unemployment rate, and a past number of asylum seekers. But the plan, supported by Germany, is a divisive one and likely to be resisted by the new conservative UK government. Britain's Home Office said the plans were unacceptable and that efforts should focus on stopping people traffickers. More than 200,000 migrants fleeing conflict or poverty from countries such as Syria, Eritrea, Nigeria, and Somalia are estimated to have crossed the Mediterranean last year, with thousands dying or declared missing, making the journey.
Joined by Jonathan Sachadodi, also from London, I-24 News European correspondent. I want to start with you, Jonathan, because the UK is already seemingly on a collision course with European leaders over the EU migrant quota. Isn't that the case?
Yes, and there have been more than 1,800 migrant deaths in the Mediterranean this year alone, which is something that is playing on the minds of politicians who at the same time have a commitment to reducing immigration numbers into this country. The new Conservative government that's just taking shape at the moment here in London has made a promise that it will reduce migrant numbers, and yet this is a moral problem for the whole of Europe and a problem that requires joint-up effort from European countries and beyond.
I mean, morally speaking, that is very correct, but you're staying with us because we're going to touch on, what the EU is offering to do in many ways, and for that also we are joined in studio by Roni Margalit, Amnesty Israel spokesperson. Roni, as Jonathan just mentioned, nearly 1,500 people died in the Mediterranean Sea on the way to Europe, trying to reach Europe. I mean, I don't think the migrant problem is going to stop because clearly they're coming from the Middle East, and the Middle East is on fire. The situation of these people, what are they facing, just so people understand, in the countries that they're leaving, and why is it so important to try and help them?
Okay, so first, many of them are refugees that fleeing from Syria, and we should keep in mind that Libya has always been both a transition place, but also a destination for refugees. And now the situation in Libya became impassable. Even community of refugees who lived there for a few years cannot stay there any longer because of the situation there at the moment. Amnesty International reported on abduction, abuses, also in detention centers that that many of the refugees are being held there without any release date, exposed to a lot of abuse, sexual harassment, sexual assault, also rape for women. And we hear about the situation about the smugglers who also put people's life in risk and also attack women that travel alone. And many reported about their experience that they've been treated as slaves.
Right. And you know, it's a problem that is not going to stop. And Jonathan, wondering out loud with you, because, and I'm going to have to say it, Mogherini's plan, Jonathan Sacherdottilan, that basically sounds, Europe needs to deal, as you mentioned, they have to deal with the migrant issue. We live in a televised age. Everybody's seeing people dying in the Mediterranean. It's a moral issue. It also doesn't look good. Has there been any kind of response though to Mogherini's suggestion to try and stop, you know, the smuggling of people already at bay?
Well, the suggestion of how this is done is twofold. One is to resettle the migrants who do get into Europe and to share that burden across the European states. And the other one is to try and stop them getting here in the first place. And the somewhat controversial method for doing that, suggested, is military, by taking out the smuggling boats and trying to undermine the smuggling and people trafficking operations, either financially or through better investigation and more joined-up efforts across Europe into their modus operandi. But that is also controversial because taking out the boats doesn't solve the problem for the people who are trying to come to Europe. And so that ethical idea there, that there is some help needed that Europe can provide to these migrants, is being ignored. Also, there is some doubt among experts that it would actually work to take out these ships. We've also had people from Australia weighing in. We even had the Prime Minister there suggesting that the only way Europe could deal with this is by adopting a method similar to the Australian method for stopping migrants coming in, which is to detain them in offshore centres and not to let them into the country. Of course, the complicated thing here is that even if it sounds heartless, what people are having to deal with across Europe, and leaders especially, is the idea that if you do resettle migrants who do get into Europe, you're making it more attractive for more people to try to get into Europe, which is making the business of the smugglers and the people traffickers better, not worse. So it needs to be a mixture of compassion, but also a hard fist that stops these actions taking place in the first place, because Europe simply can't afford or manage to absorb all the migrants, but it also can't ethically afford to ignore them.
Then, you know, valid points. That said, Ronnie, then what should Europe do? If you're listening as somebody who represents Amnesty International, you're listening to these plans at hand, be it, you know, a military action to begin with and stopping and trying to stop other migrants from coming to begin with, or, you know, dealing with it under quotas. What should it do?
So Amnesty International actually claims that both the European Union should provide more resettlement visas and help some of these refugees, because we do know that many of them are fleeing from Syria, and many of them, only recently 49 people were executed by the IS because they were Christian. So we do know that they face real danger. So one thing that Europe can do is to give resettlement visa for some of these flee. And another thing is to actually expand the operation, not just close to European shore, but closer to Libya.
Sadly, all the time we have, Jonathan, I want to thank you, because listening to Ronnie, I doubt that is something that Europe is going to do offhand immediately, which you may agree with. Thank you for being with us, Ronnie Stuff. Thank you for being with us this morning. When we get back, today is Israel Science Day. We'll show you something different and scientific, an invention aimed at recognizing suicidal tendencies in social media posts. Stay with us. First, the news. Good morning. It is still May 12th, 2015. It is also the time of day, I'm slurring my words, I'm so excited, to say hello and good morning to Ami Kaufman, who joins me daily, and thank Allah for that, to discuss the news we've missed while scanning the headlines. And why thank Allah? Because he's always so well dressed.
Oh, thank you so much. Wow. Good morning, Yael. How are you?
Listen, we got to touch on the breaking news this morning that you seem to have now an array. Is that the same handkerchief from yesterday?
Well, are we supposed to say that on air? Yes, it is.
I say everything on air.
But I'm getting a new stash of new.
Good. We need
more color to.
We need diversity.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Diversify.
It'll happen.
Yes. Yeah. News. There you go.
Yesterday was a really, really good day for Benjamin Netanyahu. He passed he passed two tests quite easily. The first, Yesh Atid, the party of Yair Lapid, petitioned to the High Court of Justice to avoid the enlargement of the government from 18 ministers to unlimited number of ministers.
I was about to say, to 160. No,
well,
okay.
basically, yes.
Yes.
And the High Court rejected that petition, which allowed the Knesset to vote on it. And that's what happened later on. The Knesset voted on the first reading of a bill to enlarge the government, and it was passed by 61 to 59, meaning everyone, all 120 MKs had to vote. And this pretty much shows that, you know, the kind of road that Benjamin Netanyahu is going to have down this Knesset is he's going to have all 61 members voting each time.
Each time, I think in Tal Shalev mentions, I-24 in his diplomatic correspondence, they mentioned something interesting. It seems to be like this curfew law, or this curfew code that he's trying to pass, that if ever there's a vote in the Knesset in the coming in the near future, all 61
have to be there,
or it's not going to fly.
It's not going to fly. Yeah. It's going to be really, really rough. That's why most people think that this government will
may not last.
Not last too long.
Yeah.
And speaking of the government, Ayelet Shaked, who is supposed to be the next justice minister, she is an MK from the Jewish Home. She was assigned bodyguards by Yuli Edelstein, the Knesset speaker. There's been a lot of incitement against her, and there's this one picture of her where she is wearing SS uniforms. We can see on this Jerusalem Post article. So
I have to say, because this is I think this is the umpteenth time in Israeli political history that we've seen, you know, political figures being put in Nazi gear, irrespective of what you think of their opinions.
Right.
It's just,
And of course, the most memorable one is Yitzhak Rabin, who was assassinated.
Exactly.
Now, Shaked has also been the subject of sexist remarks in the past few days. The former infrastructure minister, Yosef Paritsky, wrote on his Facebook wall that she is the first justice minister who can star on the calendars that hang in garages. He said she is very beautiful, like many of the Reich's women. That's what he said in a radio interview.
Like many of the what?
The Reich. Reich's women,
Okay.
And Yediot Achronot, a gossip column, wrote about Shaked's birthday weekend at the spa in Jerusalem. The column said that she went to the pool, but unfortunately kept her clothes on.
So I know I'm going to touch on this again, because as a woman, and irrespective of what you think, you know, of her ideology or of her agenda, had she been a man, that would never have been written.
Never happened.
But I'm glad that, you know, people, or let's say men in I wouldn't even say the Middle East, the world, think that she's successful because she's so good looking. Thank you for that.
Right.
Okay, I'm upset now, Ami. What else?
I'll do my best to continue with that. Well, back to Britain and the post-election developments. David Cameron is getting his government together, and he will be adding Boris Johnson, the mayor of London, to his cabinet.
Yes!
The man with the beautiful blonde hair.
He's just good fun.
He is good fun. He's a very funny guy.
Yeah.
He came into Downingtown on his bike with his helmet to accept the appointment. He's really cool. And of course, this is kind of Cameron saying, this might be my the next person who will take over the Tory party after he leaves, after his
not
next,
with that hair. Whoops, that came out loud.
Yeah. What's interesting, he doesn't actually have a specific job or portfolio. He's just going to be in the cabinet, but he will be simultaneously receiving his MP salary of 67,000 quid and his Mayor of London salary of 144,000 quid. So a total of over 200,000 quid.
The headline out of that, Ami, is we picked the wrong profession.
Well, yes.
Yeah, we knew that.
That's old news. That's old news.
Yes.
Off to Syria, we're seeing a lot of panic in Bashar Assad's inner circles. Ali Mamlouk, who was his spy chief, has been put under house arrest after being suspected of attempting a coup. And he was talking to Turkish officials. Basically, the whole thing that's going on there is that there's a lot of discontent over Iran's influence in Bashar's inner circle. One source told The Telegraph, this is exclusive by The Telegraph, that most of the advisors in the Syrian palace today are Iranian. And Ali Mamlouk was not very happy about this, and he started talking to people, and apparently he was
he's
deposed.
Unhappy about it in the cell. But it's fascinating to watch, because whatever is left of Syria, and we have to say it that way, it's kind of like Yemen. There's also not much Syria left. If Assad does stay in power, which, to put it in very simple terms, that is the agenda of the his Iranian backers, so to speak. What is left of the Syria that he controls?
No, not much.
And not much. And, what kind of sliver of land will he control? And this will play out. And
Jeb Bush, likely contender in the upcoming elections, in an interview to Fox News, said that he would have invaded Iraq too. just like his brother did in 2003.
Yeah, no, I love how this started. Jeb Bush, likely Republican contender, interview for Fox News.
Yeah.
all the ducks in a row.
Right.
Oh yeah, would invade Iraq as well.
Let me give you that money quote
Please.
from the Fox interview. He said, "I would have authorized the invasion, and so would have Hillary Clinton." Just to remind everybody, and so would almost everybody that was confronted with the intelligence they got back then. And the senators.
No, but that's an interesting statement because he's saying he would have done it considering the intelligence of
He's blaming the
information
intelligence
that we know now that has been confirmed by the CIA was false.
Right.
Okay. That any leader given that information.
Yeah, he's blaming the intelligence. What's interesting, though, he's saying it on the heels. There's 4 days 4 days earlier, he said that his advisor, his top advisor, his most influential advisor on U.S.-Israel policy is
What is
George Bush. His brother George Bush is his top advisor now on Mideast policy.
Really?
Yes.
I feel so, I'm so calm right now. One last one, real quick.
One last one, if we have time to show a quick video of Michelle Obama, who doesn't talk much about race, but I guess about recent events with let's see what she said at a commencement speech in college.
Let's see what Michelle Obama had to say for the first lady in the United States. Let's hear it.
I didn't start out as the fully formed First Lady who stands before you today. No, I had my share of bumps along the way. But as potentially the first African-American First Lady, I was also the focus of another set of questions and speculations, conversations sometimes rooted in the fears and misperceptions of others. Was I too loud or too angry or too emasculating?
Amen.
Yes.
That was from The Guardian. That was from The Guardian website. And I think it's wonderful because you haven't heard much of that from the Obamas, I have to say.
And certainly not from her. She rarely speaks about it.
Yeah. No, amen to that. And I think it's a perfect time, even though you're locked in with us, to move along. And as always, I don't even know what to say that is even nicer about what you're wearing. I'm going to shut up. Yes, thank you, Am.
Big shoes. Okay. What can I say? Yeah.
Yes, moving along. Today is Israel Science Day, and we are broadcasting from Israel. So if you are cringing just at hearing the word science, as I did when I was a little girl, fret not. Because science these days, as represented in Israel's Fair, Israel's Science Day, has gone social. Namely, social media scientific algorithms looking to decipher suicidal tendencies online in posts and shares. And I know everybody right now is thinking, oh my God, what did I post there last night? And what does that mean about me? But that is just one of the invention that, is being showcased in this year's Science Day. And to examine it closer, we are joined in studio by software engineer Shani Teitelbaum. Shani, good morning to you. Good morning. And also by Ilana Levy from the Science, Technology and Space Ministry. Ilana, good morning to you. Good morning to you. But I want to start with the overall picture, and that would mean to you, Ilana, because of the Science Ministry. Science Day, I read the agenda, it's beautiful, it's to bring science, it's to make science more available to people, the education of science, whatnot. Are you not concerned, as somebody in the ministry, that with the forming Israeli government, with so many religious factions in it, with the fact that, that science is in a bit of a danger these days in Israel?
No, actually not. I don't think science is in danger. But to remind everyone about science, we are doing this kind of activities of science days. Usually, actually, we celebrate Science Day in March. Because 14th of March is Albert Einstein's birthday. But it was 2 days before election, so we decided to postpone it.
We can blame Benjamin Netanyahu. No,
it's in August. In August is the vacation.
Okay, there we go.
We're trying to make science more popular, more available to the community, to the larger public.
No, which is wonderful.
I think the problem is that we have to remember that the government has to continue investing in science education, in schools, and in and in science and research.
No, amen to that. And that's why I'm wondering, because if there are many people
I'm not a politician. I'm not supposed to, but I'm not supposed to comment on politics. But I'm civil servant. But I'm sure this is not a problem. This will not be a problem. We even had a religious science minister. He was a professor, a rabbi.
No, exactly. So I was leading with this because, you know, the agenda between science and religion, which is known for many, many years, you know, that at the end of the day, that's the big divide. Exactly. And the concern might be that because, you know, some people that would head committees appropriating funds, you know, don't believe in evolution.
Well, we had. I don't think we had any problems with the religious parties concerning devoting budget to science.
Right.
I can tell you from the little experience I have, this was not the problem.
Was not the case, and amen.
I really hope that we will receive a good budget also this year, as we have expected. But this is.
And Science Day this year. What is it? What is being? You know, how is it being marked this year?
It's Science for All.
Amen.
Science for All, and we are. Well, the activities, we will have about 100 activities all over the country, from Kiryat Shmona in the north to Eilat in the south. The activities are in universities, research institutions, regional research research centers, regional communities. There are workshops, hand-on science workshops.
And there is a lot of it being brought to children.
Right. Yeah. We are trying to raise the interest of the youth, the children, the youth in science, bringing them to think of science as a career. One of the cutest things that we have is scientists in the kindergarten. It sounds much better in Hebrew, Mad'an Bagan.
Because it rhymes.
It rhymes, exactly. But bring scientists to the kindergartens to give them the taste of science already in this age. Mm-hmm. And we believe that this brings something in. Actually, in a questionnaire that our ministry did, there was a question about what do parents want their children to be, and after many of them wanted them to be scientists, researchers, because of the high tech.
Yes, of course.
But then you have to invest also in scientific education.
And speaking of children that grew up to be, you know, scientific geniuses, Shani.
Genius.
Yeah, there you go. You are, you know, part of this of the Science Day. And essentially, you know, you invented this algorithm, right? Mm-hmm. That I found fascinating. It's an algorithm that is trying to actually, I mean, decipher or find suicidal tendencies online.
Exactly.
How did you come up with that idea to begin with?
The idea actually came from a professor of mine from college, from Afeka College, where I studied my BSc in software engineering. The time came when I had to pick my graduate project. It's a one-year project, and you have a supervising professor. And I became interested in something that this professor was researching, which was, it's called sentiment analysis.
Okay, and the thing is, it came about also from, I think your niece was also a teenager and was talking to you about bullying.
My sister, I have...
In the short time we have, I want us to show people the algorithm. How does it work?
Okay, so this is just a nice wrapper. The algorithm is actually the brain, and you can put it on anything. You can put it as a plugin on Facebook, Twitter, whatever you want. So this is just a nice wrapper. It's an app for your PC, your office computer, whatever you want. What you will do is type the text you would like to analyze here, and just press analyze, that's it.
And then you can take like a post from Facebook of a friend of yours, put it into that app.
Yeah, and in this wrapper, yes, it's just a demonstration, but you can also plug it into the social networks, so it scans 24/7, and it is active. It's not, the system is not passive as here.
And explain to me just really quick, because I have a friend who I love to pieces, and she's wonderful. She's a writer. She's got the angriest, saddest posts on Facebook. Mm-hmm. But I know, you know, she does that as I don't want to say as a joke. That's her, you know, that's her shtick, so to speak. How does it decipher if it's not a shtick and it's an actual suicidal tendency?
So the algorithm is written in artificial intelligence techniques, mathematical and statistical models, and what it does, it learns. So I train the algorithm to detect suicidal ideation from texts that are sadly suicide notes of people who actually committed suicide,
wow.
and also other texts that can be love letters, can be anything.
Yeah.
And then it knows. So one of the most surprising things I found in my research for this project is that the words composing a suicide note or a suicidal text are great words, are very optimistic words. Almost half of the words in a letter would be I, me, variations of myself.
Right.
And then a lot of optimistic words like love, live, have, know. Usually people would like their loved ones to know that they had a good lives. It's not their fault, to leave them with a very good feeling.
Wow. Listen, I mean, it's fascinating, and I hope everybody's going to, try and find out more about this algorithm. Of course, Science Day in Israel. And when we get back, Israel and Germany mark 50 years. Stay with us. First, the news. Welcome back, I-24 News Morning Edition, the place you should be because it's still Tuesday, May 12, 2015. I am still Yael Levi, and this is still the Morning Edition. So, moving along, Israel's President Reuven Rivlin's state visit to Germany this week marks the highlight of events celebrating 50 years of diplomatic relations between the two countries. Rivlin's visit also coincides with reports from Jerusalem that Israel bought 4 German-made Corvette ships on Monday to help secure its Mediterranean gas rigs. So that's a good friendship. With Berlin heavily subsidizing the $480 million deal. But putting that aside, today is the 50-year, so to speak, mark of the relations, the diplomatic relations between Israel and Germany, a fraught, or if you may, a complicated relationship. So we're joined in studio by the head of the Goethe Institute, Dr. Wolf Iro, or Iro? Iro. Then we'll make it Iro, Dr. Wolf Iro. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks.
By acting student at the Lowenstein Studio, Hadass Feder. Good morning to you. And also by the student of the directing, the Ernst Busch at the Ernst Busch Academy. Ernst Busch. Okay. Thank you. We'll explain everything in a second. First, let's take a look at the following report about Israel and Germany 50 years on.
Israeli President Reuven Rivlin and his wife Nechama Rivlin arrived in Germany for a 2-day visit, where the head of state was received with military honors by his German counterpart Joachim Gauck, to celebrate 50 years of diplomatic relations. Later on Monday, Rivlin placed a wreath at the Gleis 17, or Track 17 Memorial, at Berlin's Grunwald station, from where some 50,000 Jews were deported by train to the Nazi concentration camps between 1941 and 1945.
We know the past and the crimes against humanity of the Holocaust forged an indissoluble bond between us, but we also know that it is not only the past that binds us, but also the values we believe in.
The Israeli president warned of the need for vigilance and solidarity in the face of rising anti-Semitism.
Today, we look at the world around us and are gravely concerned to see the rise of anti-Semitism and racism on the streets across the world. It's our duty as Israelis, Germans, Democrats, as an important part of humanity, to stand together with determination against such evils.
Rivlin's visit coincides with reports from Jerusalem that Israel bought 4 German-made Corvette warships on Monday to help secure its Mediterranean gas rigs. The ships are worth 430 million euros. The German government will pay 115 million euros towards the cost. As part of its atonement for the Nazi Holocaust, Germany is committed to Israel's security and has often helped pay in the past for the cost of military equipment, such as submarines.
Let's go first straight to Berlin with the Israeli ambassador to Germany, Ambassador Yaakov Hadass Handelsman is joining us on the phone. Good morning to you, Ambassador. The trip, I'm assuming, is going very well. Good morning. What would you say is, what would you say is the highlight of the relations between Israel and Germany this year?
I think that the highlights in commemorating the 50th anniversary this year is cooperation that exists between the two countries and the people on the various so-called civil domains, which are really full by activities, all kinds of activities, and things which usually they also stand by their own merits.
No, valid point. When it comes also to a deal that we heard that has been signed over the course of the last few days, there's also support when it comes to Israel's, I'd say, military capability, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Germany and Israel on the political level have this very close relations, including also on this domain.
In this domain. What is expected throughout the day today in Germany? I know Ruby Rivera, the president, is there. Any more events expected to commemorate this date, this relationship?
Yeah, well, yes. Today, first of all, he has some political meetings. He will be having lunch with the chancellor, be meeting the foreign minister, speaker of the German parliament. And at the evening, there is a joint event, 2 parts, which are being under the auspices of both presidents. First, the German president invites people to the Philharmonie Hall for a special concert to commemorate the 50th anniversary. And right after this concert, the Israeli president will host all the people who come for the Israel 67th Independence Day reception at the atrium of the Philharmonie Hall in Berlin.
Ambassador,
and I think this is going to be.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you. And
I think this is going to be. Hello.
Yes, we can hear you, Ambassador.
Okay, then. Hello.
Well, I think we're losing the line, but I want to thank the ambassador out of Germany, as we said, an Israeli delegation in Germany to mark this day. But we are also joined via Skype from Berlin by Yediot Ahronot correspondent Eldad Beck. Eldad, good morning to you.
A very good morning to you as well.
Lovely. I'd love for you to stay for our discussion, because I'm going to move it straight back to the studio, where I'm joined by 3 fabulous people. I'm going to start with you, the head of the Goethe Institute. Once again, your last name, Irul. Mr. Irul, yes, I keep forgetting. The ambassador of Israel to Germany, obviously, the relations are great, everything is wonderful, but I think the big elephant in the room is that at the end of the day, it's a fraught relationship, it's a complicated relationship. I know you said when you spoke to one of our journalists that indeed you are not 50 years old yourself, so you can't take a look back on it, but what were the challenges between Israel and Germany over the course of the last 50 years? I'm going to say the word. I'm not talking the Holocaust. Obviously, the challenges were to, get over that. When we're looking at societies today, have both societies overcome that barrier?
Well, I'd like to talk about the inception again, because I was at an event with President Rivlin where he said that 50 years ago he was actually one of the main protesters against taking up the diplomatic relationships, and then he's glad that he didn't succeed in his protest. That's right, yeah. Yes. And I was I caught myself thinking, well, I would have done the same, yeah. Being him, being at that time. So I thought it was actually very moving. So looking back at that, or now speaking about today, I think, well, the thing is, one doesn't cancel out the other. So I think while we've got this monstrous narrative of the Shoah, which will stay, and at the same time we've got another narrative kind of developing now over the time, and it has developed over the last 70 years, 50 years, 30 years. Well, it's developing all the time, and I think they go parallel, so to speak, and people make different experiences now.
No, entirely so. And Eldad Beck with us on the phone from Berlin. I'm wondering out loud with you, Eldad, because I myself spent some years as a child in Germany. Those would be the 70s. My parents worked there. It was incredibly taboo to even say that we're living and working there, or that they were living and working there at the time, which is clearly not the case these days in Berlin, is it?
Well, first of all, I think that it is important to stress the fact that the relations between both countries are extremely important for both countries. and therefore one has to put a lot of effort into keeping it as unique as it should have been, as the fathers of the reconciliations between both sides thought it should be. However, we have the impression that while as most of the Israelis have reconciled with Germany over the last 50 years, and you can see it by the numbers of Israelis that are coming here to Berlin, not only as tourists, but also Israelis move here to live for a certain period. At the same time, we have the impression that the large majority of the German population has not reconciled with Israel. And I think that it was quite sad yesterday to see the fact that President Rivlin comes here to celebrate 50 years of diplomatic relations, and he is being held away from any German public, not only for security reasons, but I suppose that the fact that most of the German population does not approve of Israel nowadays was definitely one of the reasons that Rivlin was kept by himself. One more thing that I believe has to be stressed out regarding the visit of Rivlin, while as the Israeli president keeps on saying how wonderful it is that both countries managed to develop their relations in the last 50 years in a very significant way, the German president keeps on talking about the differences between both sides, and I think that this is a little bit not to the height of the event.
No, it's a telling thing, Sarah. I'm asking you again. I know it's a day of, and people should, I shouldn't use the word move along, but you know, it's a day of marking diplomatic relations. If we're hearing Eldad Beck, is the fact that, you know, it's no secret that the European continent as a whole, not just Germany, has issues with Israel's dealings in the Middle East or what it does. Do you think that Germany feels beholden, as Eldad Beck just mentioned, to, you know, put on a face towards the world when it comes to Israel? And, you know, what is the work that can be done against that, so to speak?
I would tend to agree with Eldad in the way that while the numbers we heard lately, and which actually didn't change over the last 20 years, I find them rather depressing, so to speak. I think when it comes to criticizing things in Israel, I keep telling my I keep telling people, well, it has to be done with empathy. Well, this is I'm deeply convinced that well, it has to be an empathetic criticism, and well, this obviously also stems from the obligation or the from the past.
And we shouldn't. And you know, I think you're putting it in right words, and we shouldn't be dancing around it. It's that issue, which is the time to move also to the young people in the audience. To the young people in the studio, because you two seem very young, I have to say. But it is, you know, it is a fact that, you know, the relationship is fraught between the two countries. A lot of cooperation, they're both needed, right? But at the end of the day, you know, there's always this big umbrella looming over it. But you're young actors, okay? And essentially, you also, I'm sorry, are here for the first time out of Europe. Your first trip out of Europe is to Israel?
Yeah.
Wow. The Israeli Lowenstein Studio and the German Ernst Busch Academy of Dramatic Arts have a new project in which Israeli and German students act and create together, and we're joined in studio, as we said, by the acting studio of the Lowenstein Acting Studio, Hadass Feder, and by Ernst Busch, and by the Ernst Busch Academy Dramatic Arts, Max Martens. A lot of names. What is this project? Explain to me to begin with.
You want to start?
I can start, yeah.
Yes, you should.
One student in my group, we have 5 students in Berlin and who study directing, and one student of my group come from Israel. And he organized a project between your school and my school that we have an exchange to come here for 3 weeks to work with the acting students.
What did you know about Israel before you came here? What did you know about Israel before you came here?
Mostly out of the Bible.
Really?
I'm come from a very religious family, and I read the whole Bible, so I know the whole places.
Wow, yeah, I know.
Israel, but,
it looks the same, doesn't it?
Not really.
I know.
Tel Aviv doesn't come.
I know. It's the burning bush. Wow. Fascinating. So you come here, and then you meet.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hadass, for example.
Hadass. What is this project? It's kind of a project of actors, and because I think we're all dancing around these issues here in many ways. But how was the encounter with the German students?
I think the connection between these projects is the context between Berlin and Tel Aviv. I think to go around the third generation situation and just to express the young people, as you said, the young voice that is expressed in art in terms about Tel Aviv as the young, hip artist city in Israel, and of course the context between Berlin, that is the most, I think, center of the whole world now, by a context that artists can go and express themselves from the whole Europe and of course from Israel. So the context is between the cities, and from them to create the point of view in a political ways, in cultural ways, in language ways, and of course in above, as you said, the big umbrella is the third generation voice.
Let's move along.
Yeah.
No, and Sarah, really, really quickly, I want to ask you, what do we need to move along past just the pleasantries, do you think, between Israel and Germany?
I think exchange, just meeting people, because, check it out, in Germany, many people, haven't really met any Israelis or any Jews, for that matter, either.
No,
apart from Berlin, let's say.
No, the valid point, a very, very valid point, and it is that will make a change. Sadly, all the time we have on this fascinating issue. When we get back, something entirely different. We'll take a closer look at a very interesting initiative. You should stay with us. First, the news. Good morning. Thank you for staying with us. I-24 News Morning Edition on this May
12th.
Thank you. You need to be prepared, Ami.
I'm sorry.
Yes. But Ami Kaufman's here with me in studio. I'm not going to speak to him right now. Moving on to the next guest. Treatment for breast cancer often means surgery, and women find their bodies and self-image irrevocably changed as a result. No one understands this better than a survivor herself, and that is our next guest. Efrat Roman has spent the long convalescence after her mastectomy and chemotherapy researching the best products for her condition. But she couldn't find a website that carried everything a patient might need. She decided to create one on her own. And together with Tovi Rigler, she launched Cure Diva, that is curediva.com, an online shopping mall where cancer patients can find apparel, accessories, cosmetics, and other products, whatever they need. As a woman, I know how important that is, okay? So Efrat Roman is here with us, and I'm very happy that you're joining us this morning.
Thank you very much for inviting
me. I want to hear your story first, because we had a discussion about this item beforehand, and many on our team of the show said maybe this will be depressing, and I find this one of the more optimistic things that we've done in a long time. You're a breast cancer survivor.
I am.
How long ago did you suffer?
7 years, thanks God, this May.
Okay, shake my hand.
Oh, great.
Amen. There you go. Now, I don't need, I'm sure that, you can tell me everything about how awful it was to go through that, but you find this moment of, this sliver of light, and you create, for women like you, basically a website that does what?
Well, I hope that what Cure Diva does is gives women who are going through this horrible journey and these horrible side effects and treatments and surgeries and everything, giving them a little of control over their lives and some kind of normality and keeping their lifestyles. That's it.
I want to know, and it's exactly that, the control that I want to ask you about, because I'm sure this came about at a time, or the idea came about when you felt like you were losing all control.
I lost not only control over my life, but I was losing so much of the sense of who I was. I mean, you know, we're creating a personality, we're being all the things that we are, and then in like 2 months you're becoming a cancer patient.
How old were you when you were
40, exactly. And it's amazing because you think that you'd go out and people would still see the person you are, and all of a sudden you're becoming a patient, and the changes are so cruel and so harsh and so fast. I mean, you know, it took less than 2 months to be losing my breast, my hair, getting all the menopause symptoms and everything. And when I talk about, you know, gaining control back all over all these symptoms, it seems, you know, for a time it seemed, you know, being vain, or people would go and tell me, oh, come on, what are you, why are you even, you know, you're fighting for your life.
Why are you trying to look good?
Yeah, who cares about your hair or your shirts or whatever? And at the beginning, I was thinking maybe it was just me. But then, you know, I started going into online support groups and meeting women. And all of them were, you know, women that were fighting for their lives, going through a hell of treatments and surgeries and everything. And they were like, the worst thing that happened to me was losing my hair. And then you go like, okay, so I'm not alone there. Yeah. And there were so many products, but they were everywhere. I mean, there was one survivor who created this beautiful shirt, or another one who created some other product, and there was not even one site that would give me
everything together.
Yes, and support, because it's not, CureDiva is not only an online very big and extensive shop, it's also a very, very, very strong community. We have thousands of more than thousands, almost 100,000 women in our community. And it's very, very important, because if someone is looking for a product to help her go through her hot flashes, for example, she needs someone who's been there to be talking about having hot flashes at the age of 40 or 38 or whatever it is.
No, and I think it's a wonderful point that you've made, that control is actually control over who we are, and who we are is what makes us feel good, is what we look like, is maintaining that person that you are while you're going through these horrible changes in many ways. What does CureDiva offer? So it offers support, but it offers what? It offers clothes, it offers
every item on earth that could help women go through this. It begins with clothing and, you know, special bras, breast forms, wigs, hats, even, you know, wigs for the eyebrows, eyelashes, false eyelashes, special cosmetics, organic, and like even, you know, fans, you know, like hand fans and stuff like that.
That are stylish.
Yes.
Amen. No, because Ami should know well, style is very important for Ami Kaufman. Yeah. No, I'm going to pound on that.
Style is very important.
Style is very important, period, exactly. I have none, but I should develop some. But that said, you are the website has gained a lot of success worldwide. It's doing very well in the States, isn't it?
Yes.
Knock on glass.
Knock on glass. That's the new version of
some of the reactions you've gotten from women who are sick or from women survivors. Tell us a little bit.
It's the most exciting thing about, you know, creating such a site is that we really get so many women, you know, approach us and say that it really made their journey easier. It made them, you know, feel whole again. It made them feel feminine. And these are, you know, the best reactions we can get.
Efrat Roman, I want to say very few people take a traumatic incident in their lives and actually, you know, uplift it to something optimistic, and you've done that. And I think that's wonderful. And you are locked with us in studio. As we move to Ami Kaufman, but first of all, that was Efrat Roman, and the website is curediva.com, and it's a wonderful, wonderful idea, and you should check it out.
Thank you.
So, Ami,
yes,
with the web review, the spiral viral that is the web review, and the bow tie that is the man.
Yeah, it's straight, right?
It's straight. It's very straight. The style woman is here. Yes. And
I'm going to open with some, for me, this is really sad news. I don't know if you're a reality show fan, but I watch American Idol a lot. I love American Idol, and the next season will be...
Hold on.
Yeah. Are you sitting down?
Yes, I am. I am. You have just given me so much ammunition.
I'm sorry. I admit,
yes.
I love American Idol, and next season will be its last season, season 15 on Fox, with these, pretty famous people already.
I'm sorry, but thank God.
No, don't do that. Don't do that. There are a lot of fans out there, including me. I'll be very sad.
Really?
Yes.
You sit there at home with your girls.
You know what I like about American Idol?
What do you like about American Idol?
Compared to other, reality? It's just an old-fashioned talent contest.
Show.
The best singer usually wins.
Right.
And they keep it kind of simple. So
no,
I'm
devastated.
You don't share this sentiment.
I do
with
not
me?
share the sadness.
Okay.
But when it's the last show, we will have a special edition here, and we're going to let you sing.
And I will wear a bow tie as well.
Exactly.
Yes. And okay. Mother's Day was just 2 days ago. I think 2 days ago. And there's this website
seen on Facebook.
Yeah, it's all over Facebook.
God.
There's this new video here that's going pretty viral from a website called Distractify, where these kids hook their mothers up to a lie detector test and ask them some pretty interesting questions. And I think we have a few seconds of this. We should see
we have to watch it. Let's take a look.
When you answer a question, this machine is going to tell us whether you are lying or speaking the truth.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, no.
Mom, have you ever broken the law?
Yes.
Was it smoking related?
Yes.
Have you ever done drugs before?
What do you mean by drugs?
And have you ever smoked pot?
Just a few times.
Really?
Yeah, just a few times.
I did not know that.
No, this was the easy stuff. There's
I was about to say, wow, yeah.
Some other questions.
I'm horrified by this.
Yeah.
I can never let my children watch this.
Yeah.
I mean, fine with the mom, did you smoke a joint thing, but how did it continue?
Anything you want to tell us?
No,
Okay.
no, not a thing. Yes, never inhaled.
Some other questions there that dealt with sex and nude photos that were sent to people, and mothers were caught lying quite a few times.
Quite a few times.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, and
okay, this next one is from BuzzFeed. This guy is named Kevin Blandford. He's 34 from Kentucky, and his workplace gave him a free trip to Puerto Rico, but because his wife and he just gave birth their baby was about 6 months old,
right.
They couldn't go with him. So what he did was he posted these photos of him very, very sad in Puerto Rico, and they went really viral. But the Puerto Rican tourism agency saw this, and they said, we want you to come back again now with your family and be happy. So here are the photos of him before and after. This is him alone.
That is a brilliant idea. We need to start trying this.
Yeah, here he's alone in the bed.
Alone in the bed. Here's
then there's his wife.
And there he is.
At the casino, in the room.
Although, note to self, do not send pictures of myself not happy from vacation. Yes.
Yeah, you might have forgotten that one.
I might have forgotten that one. Yeah.
So this is a nice one. Okay. Now to two Vine videos. Vine videos are really short, and I like them. They're about 8 seconds long. The first one is about people who are buying Apple Watches and how they're really proud about how they have these Apple Watches and what they do to show them off. So here's this guy.
Okay, let's take a look.
What does an Apple Watch?
Apple Watch Vine.
Yeah.
Loving this already. Let's take a look. And nobody's watching. Yeah, I have to say, because I have just recently returned from Greece, which I keep mentioning. My taxi driver there had an iPhone. Had an Apple Watch.
Apple Watch,
which was to me very bizarre.
And was he driving like this?
Basically, yes. And to me it was but my first reaction was, "Oh my God, it's an Apple phone!" And he goes, "Yes."
Oh,
and I'm like, "Isn't Greece going through terrible financial troubles?" But that would be. And the second.
And another Vine video is about Kanye West, who has this perpetual scowl. He never smiles. He says it's a trademark scowl.
He's Jesus.
But he was actually caught on camera at a game with the Chicago Bulls talking to Scottie Pippen, a former player, and he actually smiled a little. And the camera caught this. Look what happens when he finds out.
Oh. Yeah.
This
Damn, man. Oh my God,
viral.
they caught me being happy.
Yeah,
I'm married to the sexiest woman alive. I need to be upset.
Kim Kardashian is the sexiest.
Well, many people believe that. I mean, I've been,
And you think I'm crazy because of American Idol.
But.
Okay.
Yes.
this photo of a cop that was dealing with a protest in London, and he was shot by a photographer, and he has a beard and a nice mustache, and it went viral. It turned into a whole meme. Then he's called the new hipster cop.
See, if somebody like that would come to me and you know would ask me to stop doing whatever I'm doing, I could not take it seriously.
Right.
I mean, seriously.
So he's called the hipster cop, and they put all these captions on photos, you know, saying, "Hey, my pepper spray is organic."
Exactly.
And,
yeah, I know. That. My mustache is ridiculous.
It turns out that he is a 6'4" ex-soldier who loves motorbikes, listens to Meatloaf, and claims he is definitely not a hipster. He really took it personally.
He's
he is
just
not
incredibly
a hipster.
insane.
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. Yes.
And lastly, we have another video of a family of black bears in Yellowstone, which got a bit too close comfort to a group of tourists. Let's see what happens.
Let's see what happens here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
No, wait. Let's dissect this. Okay. If you see these three bears very cutely coming along, would you have that reaction? Why? Yeah.
The reaction of running or reaction of not running? Which reaction?
Running.
Well, okay, you know what? The park authorities in the States, they actually say the worst thing you can do when you're in this situation is to run. What you're supposed to do is actually stand still, and if they get really close, you're supposed to make a lot of noise, like even growl back, or if you have some pots and pans, start banging them and try to scare them.
Or
the last thing that you want to do
is run. And that's what every single person there did. Yeah. Because I'm thinking that, you know, if you're standing there, you know, fine, but if you're running, you immediately look like food.
Exactly. Not only that, that was a mother bear with 3 cubs, and the mother bear, when she is next to her cubs, they can get really, really angry if one of the people.
And not only that, you know, whoa, they're running lunch. You know, there we have it.
Dangerous situation.
Dangerous situation. Ami Kaufman with the most important news of the day. If not, seriously, we sometimes do actual news here, but I just thought I would note that. That was it for us, folks. Thank you for being with us this morning. Do not forget to check us out tomorrow morning. I-24 News Morning Edition, the place to be. Of course, also on social media, Facebook and Twitter, and tune in tomorrow morning for another edition. Now, as always, the news.